Hello everyone, welcome to our interview with Dr Jaclyn Gatt, one of the vet directors at the Bird and Exotic Animal Clinic. BEAC is a rapidly growing exotic animal practice in Melbourne, Australia, and is exactly what its name says it is. She has kindly taken time out of her very busy day to answer some questions for us. So Dr Jack, can you tell us what your current job is?
So I'm an exotics vet and practice owner, so I work in 100% exotics practice, seeing birds, rabbits, guinea pigs, rats, mice, lizards, turtles, snakes, native mammals and wildlife.
That's certainly a diverse sort of job. What qualifications do you have now?
So I started out, like most vets, with a Bachelor of Veterinary Science, and then I went back and did more study and did a Master's in Conservation Medicine. So that's all kind of zoo and wildlife medicine stuff, and a bit of infectious diseases of dogs and cats and a few other fun things. Yeah.
That sounds great. What was your career pathway to get to where you are now?
Yeah, so I started in small animal practice in the largest, busiest hospital in the Southern Hemisphere, and essentially started doing largely small animals and then little bits of exotics, which was always my personal interest, and then followed that up with lots of emergency critical care while I was there. As part of my other studies, I then got to do, more things involving placement at zoos and with wildlife, and kind of continued following on that path. Left the giant practice to go and work in emergency critical care for a couple of years. Also worked in a couple of different shelters, sort of casually throughout that time. Did a little bit of lab animal work, which was a great way to see another side of vetting and the research sector. And then ended up opening my own practice. And yeah, here I am 8 and a bit years later.
That's quite a journey. How did you get your first job?
So I was fairly lucky. I was actually working as a vet nurse while I studied. So I had sort of 3.5 years of nursing throughout a 4-year course. And I didn't think I would get a job where I ended up getting it. And essentially, one of the vets there sort of went to management and said, hey, we think this person would be a great fit and we think that they would cope well. And so, yeah, they kind of made a new grad position for me, which was pretty exciting. I did not expect that.
That was very lucky. Why did you choose to focus on exotic animals?
Well, they're adorable, Exhibit A. But I think for me it was about, one, finding something that I was passionate about. I'd grown up with birds and ducks and rabbits and lizards and turtles. I've owned a heck of a lot of exotic pets in my time. And I think as I got to studying vet, I learned that there's a huge knowledge gap. And for me, the idea of doing something that you can't always just look up an answer in a textbook, and going into uncharted territory where, sometimes we do have to make up our own, ways of doing things, and even if that means using a custom material to build a splint for a parrot so that you can set a broken leg, it's just a really exciting kind of field to be in because it is so new and up and coming.
Well, given all the challenges and the diversity of your patients, what is your average day like?
I don't think I have one other than it's crazy. I can tell you it always starts with coffee. I very much don't function without that. So there's caffeine. Usually we try and have consults in the morning. So they're generally, revisits, some new patients, some regular bird checks. Inevitably, throughout the morning we'll get phone calls from people wanting to bring in emergencies. So today's emergency was a collapsed tremoring budgie that needed to go into oxygen, and we managed to diagnose him with metal toxicity. Yesterday I had a rabbit with gut stasis that hadn't been eating or pooing for a little while. So that can happen over several days or all at once. We then would end up doing some surgeries, so it could be anaesthetic and x-rays and blood tests on a bird. It could be a routine desexing, but every day is different.
It's probably good though, isn't it?
Definitely, I wouldn't have it any other way.
In your opinion and with your experience, do you think exotic pets are too readily available?
Yeah, difficult question, but I think the availability is not so much the problem as the requirements for owning one. And even with some of your difficult species like your bearded dragons and your reptiles that you need a license for, paying for a piece of paper to keep something is not the same as necessarily getting the information from an appropriate source to learn how to keep these animals for the best of their health. And that's a constant battle for us, because unfortunately not all industries that sell pet food, for example, are out there for the animal's best interests. And rabbit and guinea pig muesli mixes are probably one of my favourite soapboxes to get on, as well as, you know, bird seed and selling people seed as a diet, when we know that these things cause major disease. And yeah, I just think selling products that are for preventable diseases is a huge issue. So yeah, I think they need more regulation, definitely.
Given your experience with wildlife and zoo medicine, are there any Australian mammals that you think would make suitable pets?
Generally speaking, no. I think the majority of our native, certainly native Australian mammals, excuse me while I save the cookies from the unhelpful bird.
She's being a big help.
She really is, but I want that cookie, so I don't want to share. She's going straight back. Give here. So, yeah, generally speaking, I would say no. If anything, maybe sugar gliders, but even then, you know, we have to remember that they're a nocturnal species. They need to be kept in social groups, and they do have really, really specific dietary requirements. So many of them in captivity end up with severe obesity and obesity-related diseases. So yeah, generally though, I would say no.
What about our native reptiles?
Reptiles is a different story. I think reptiles can do exceptionally well as pets, again, provided that we learn about their specific requirements and know how they live in the wild.
That's very fair. What's your favourite thing about your job?
Definitely the cute patients is a help. You know, there is a little bit of cuddling bunnies and cooing over adorable birds. Probably the most rewarding thing though is finding a bond that you value because you love your pets, and finding people that value that bond just as much as you do.
And what would you say your biggest challenge has been?
Probably more of a practical level. Work-life balance is by far my biggest challenge, and you know, adding to that, work-life balance has to be in check, or else you do end up, you know, with your mental health suffering as well as your physical health. So yeah, I would say definitely, like so many in this profession, trying to balance the requirements of the job as well as still being a person outside of being a vet, which is so important.
Absolutely. With that in mind, are you glad you became a vet?
Yes, I think so. For the most part, we all have our days where we sort of shake our head and think, oh, why do we do this? But by and large, you know, I'm lucky enough to come to work every day, love what I do, and be still passionate about it, you know, nearly a decade later. And I don't think there's too many people that are lucky enough to be able to say that.
No, it is a good position to be in. Do you have any advice for any vet students out there?
Yep, I think, as I said before, you know, remember that you're a person first and foremost. You will be a person with interests other than being a vet, whether that's, you know, scuba diving or snowboarding or reading or music. You are you, and then you're a vet second. And it's very easy to get swallowed up into the black hole that is vet school, because you're surrounded by vet students and vet everything day in, day out. But don't forget to take time to look out for yourself, have some self-care, and, you know, take a day off a week, you know, take some time for you, go out, go see a movie, and see your friends that are not from vet, because they'll help keep you in perspective.
And do you take vet students at your clinic?
Absolutely. We love having students here. We're a very teaching-heavy clinic, and we all really, really enjoy having students. So we're fairly heavily booked in advance. So yeah, people can email the clinic website, and they'll get through to me generally.
And would you like to tell us about your pets?
I would, definitely. I've even got my earrings on today, hopefully they're the right way up, which have been custom made from a photo of my own rabbit. So I have 2 bunnies that are house rabbits and free range in our house. I have 3 cats, all beautiful boys. I have an aviary full of parrots. I have a marine fish tank and a freshwater fish tank, and a very, very patient partner who puts up with all of that. I have 2 dogs as well, but they live at my parents' house, so I'm not going to count those because I'm approaching, crazy cat lady status very quickly otherwise.
It sounds like quite a life. Thank you very much for your time, Jack.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching. If you'd like more information about the Bird and Exotic Animal Clinic, you can check out the links in the description below.
We'll figure something out.
I will let you see it before it.
Animals and children.